Dennis, you want to play the breaking news sounder? I saw it on Twitter. Actually, Dennis saw it on Twitter and told me, and then I saw it on Twitter, and then I retweeted it. Caleb Love to Michigan. So, your thoughts on Caleb Love, Mr. DeCock?
No, it's good. I mean, he's, originally from the Midwest, gets him back, into Big Ten country. Obviously, Juwan Howard's had some success there, has had 3 big transfers, needs to replace some people. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that'll be good for Caleb Love, and I think that's a pretty good landing spot for him.
I agree. It is a good landing spot for him. What do you think was the issue for him this year? Because, look, of all the other players, Caleb Love, I still believe that Caleb Love was the best pro prospect that they had on that roster last year. He's 6'4", he's got a big frame. If he just developed some consistency in his offense, Caleb Love might be headed to the NBA draft this year. What do you think?
And might have been after last season. I mean, it wouldn't have been no one would have been shocked if he declared for the draft last year. Look, Caleb Love is obviously going to have a very mixed legacy at North Carolina because he was part of one of the greatest moments in school history. What might have gone down as the greatest shot in school history if they'd gone on to beat Kansas. But by the same token, was heavily criticized by the fan base, especially this year, but also his first 2 years. Let's go back to after Roy's last year and everyone talking about how RJ and Caleb and, he couldn't reach them, and Walker Kessler transfers, and that was a group that was perceived to be, to whatever degree is right or wrong, sort of problem children. And then the start of last year, everybody was all over Caleb Love. And then this year. So, I think the problem with Caleb Love is, one, he's a high-volume shooter. Some of his shots were not good, but other times, the other players on the team, the other players on the court, would look to him late in the shot clock and say, well, Caleb will bail us out. And it probably was asked to do too much of that. The problem for me with UNC, for the exception of March, April 2022, was that you had 3 guys, 1 forward and 2 guards, who all needed the ball in their hands a lot. And it just, other than that magical month where they figured it out and shared the ball, and you had a 4th guy in Brady Manick who needed it too, it was just too many ball-dominant players without a distributing point guard to make them all mix. And that just, to me, it was people talk about chemistry and all that stuff. To me, the chemistry was on the court. It was just square pegs and round holes a lot of the time. I think if Caleb Love goes to Michigan, is in a different group, has a point guard, isn't asked to bail his teammates out because they've run terrible offense for 34 seconds, I think he could have a really good year and really rebuild his pro prospects.
Look, I also think that no scar tissue there probably will have a benefit for Caleb Love as well. A lot of roster turnover, obviously. I don't know how many of the departures are really significant. I think the one that I think should really jump out, other than the guys that Hubert recruited, right? The Puff Johnson one is a little bit of a problem for me, only because we saw at the end of last year that Puff could have been a major player this year. But for whatever reason, it didn't work out this year. What do you make of the roster turnover?
Honestly, if I were on that bench and I never played all year, even when the team was struggling, if I'm a Dontrez Styles, I'd be transferring too. I don't blame that kid at all, and I hope he lands somewhere. It'd be awesome, I think, if he landed at State, which recruited him very heavily out of Kinston. So, there's a lot going on there. I don't have a problem with Puff Johnson because he did show signs, and then he really never played this year. There were spurts, but, if you're not going to play your bench, and Hubert Davis has made it clear he's going to make K look like he goes deep onto the bench. He's going to play 6 or 7 guys and play the other guys 32, 35 minutes, whatever the numbers are, clearly going to rely heavily on a small group of players. You're going to lose guys in the portal, and that's one of the things we've been talking about with the portal is, it's unfair to coaches because players don't want to stick around and they're not committed to the team anymore. I've never understood that argument. If you're a coach who recruits players and you tell them they're going to play and then you don't play them, that's not their fault. If they want to go somewhere else, that's your fault. You have to adjust. Times have changed. And, Hubert, being a new head coach and a younger guy and of this generation, I wouldn't think would have issues with that. But obviously he's made his choices. He had certain guys he liked to play and certain guys he didn't. And for a guy who said that DeMarco Dunn and Dontrez Styles were going to have their names in the rafters before it was all over, he never showed a lot of confidence in them when push came to shove.